Hi everyone, my name is Casey Shipman and I'm the Program Coordinator for Instant Israel at CJE SeniorLife. Today I'm going to take you through my trip to Iceland in the summer of 2018. Here we go. Okay, so this is my trip to Iceland, the land of fire and ice, and you'll see why on this presentation. So this is the Icelandic flag. It's red, white, and blue, like ours. The difference is the colors are representative of a lot of the geographic aspects of the country. So the red represents the volcanic fires. The white is reminiscent of the snow and the glaciers. That's very reminiscent of the country itself. And the blue is for the really clear blue skies that they have. So, a little bit about the history of Iceland. Iceland was settled in 874 AD by Norwegian Viking Ingolfur Arnarson. And Iceland is the oldest democracy in the world, which is very interesting. Probably didn't know that. Iceland's Commonwealth has been governed by its parliament since 930 AD. So, that's a pretty long time ago. A little bit more. In the 18th century, a quarter of the population of Iceland emigrated to the US and Canada due to famine. A lot of them made their way back later on. After World War II, assistance and industrialization of fisheries brought prosperity, and Iceland became, and still is today, one of the most developed and wealthiest nations in the world. Also, Iceland was the first democracy in the world to elect a female president. Her name was Vigdis, Finnbogadóttir in 1980. And of course, you're probably wondering the Cod Wars. The Cod Wars of 1958 with Great Britain increased Iceland's exclusive fishing waters from just 4 miles to 200 miles of water. So this picture here is a picture I took on my trip, and you can see there is a little cluster of trees in the middle of the picture. Iceland used to have a lot of trees. About 40% of the country actually was covered in trees, and today only about 2% is covered in trees. So that's a tiny, tiny little fraction that you're seeing there of the trees that used to be covering the country. They are working on reforestation efforts as we speak, but if you go there, and as you'll see in the pictures I show, you don't see many trees. It's pretty bare land. Fun fact, Iceland is the most eco-friendly country in the world thanks to its geography. So 30% of electricity is geothermal, and the rest is generated by hydropower, meaning it's powered through water. This is a picture here of some mountains you can see in the background, water, green, really bright colors that kind of contrast the rocks and the black lava. Hot springs. So only about 20% of Iceland is actually inhabited by people. As you'll see in the pictures, there's a lot more land than houses and cities and streets and things like that, because of their geography largely. So volcanoes, geothermal pools, glaciers, that makes up the vast majority of the land, which is what it's known for, is all of this incredible geography. And despite its name, actually, Iceland's surface is only 10% ice. So Greenland actually has a lot more ice on its land surface than Iceland does. So a hot spring, you can see in this picture here, or a geothermal spring, is a spring produced organically through organically heated groundwater that rises from the Earth's crust. Some springs, like this one that you see in the picture, are safe to swim and relax in, kind of like a hot tub or a jacuzzi. Some are way too hot. but it was really fascinating to see so many hot springs. When we would drive through the country, you'd see them all along the side of the road. There would be a little sign, just pop off the road and there's a hot spring, and there'd usually be a little outhouse or something for you to change in. So this was just a way of life that people would just be driving along and pop into a hot spring and relax for a little bit and then be on their way. This is the Blue Lagoon. This is a really, really popular tourist spot. It's a really big hot spring, as you can see. 30% of Iceland is covered in lava fields. So as you can see all around in the background, those kind of rocky hills that you see surrounding the Blue Lagoon, that's all lava rock. This spot is really kind of luxury, high-end touristy. So they had a spa where you could buy all kinds of lotions and hair products and skin products that were made from lava and things like that. Really, really elaborate. They also had in this pool little wet bars where you could swim up and get drinks. So it was a really fun, unique experience. It's just another picture of what the Blue Lagoon looked like. There were a lot of people there just swimming around, relaxing. It was a very, very unique experience. And you can see kind of some of the steam from the water rising up. It was very cold outside of the water, but it was really, really nice inside it. So Iceland has one of the most active volcano areas in the world. This is a little, you can see in the picture here, this red line, that's literally a lava line from thousands of years ago when there was lava kind of oozing over the land, over the rock. The volcano area in Iceland erupts about every 5 years. So the next portion of this kind of picture presentation I want to show you is called the Golden Circle. It's a very, very popular tourist attraction. Iceland is a really small country, so you can cover lots of different area and geography in a short amount of time. So we spent a day traveling through this Golden Circle, which covered about 200 miles, but we got to see a lot of different spots. And like I said, they were all really popular tourist spots, but we were able to get a lot of really great pictures and experiences of what the land is really like. So this first waterfall here is called Skogafoss waterfall. Most of the waterfalls have the word foss at the end, which means waterfall. You'll see more of this waterfall later on in the presentation. This is just kind of a little glimpse into what our day was like there. So this is the first stop on the Golden Circle. It's called Pingvellir National Park. The waterfalls were really, really cool, but I've never been to Europe, and a lot of people said that the imagery of this park was reminiscent of the UK. So for me, this was the first time seeing things like that, the kind of craggy hills and the rock against the really bright green. It was really, really beautiful. So what's so cool about this park is that it is a tectonic boundary line, which means you can see there's this rift between the two mountain lines that marks the boundary between the North American and Eurasian tectonic plates. And then you can also see in the background, there's a lake far at the back of this picture. That is Pingvellavatan Lake. It is the largest natural lake in Iceland. It's a really cool picture from the park of just a small little waterfall. Pingvellir Park was founded in 1930. It became a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2004. The area was originally really small park, but they expanded it and made it a lot bigger and more expansive to preserve as much land as possible around the area. Just another really cool picture from inside down below the boundary line. You can see it was a little rainy that day, but these colors, there's no filter on the picture or anything like that. They were just so bold. The greens were so lush and beautiful. So this is a geyser. This was our second stop on the Golden Circle. Iceland has a lot of geysers. Actually, the English word geyser is derived from Iceland, from Icelandic's famous geyser. This is the first known geyser in modern Europe as well. This particular geyser in this picture here can erupts every few years. It's not super active. It's a little unpredictable. When we were there, it hadn't gone off in a while, but still a really cool picture. This geyser, Stroker Geyser, was just about 50 meters away from that geyser, and this one went off every 8 to 10 minutes. So it was obviously hard to get a picture capturing the geyser going off in the moment, but people would gather around every few minutes knowing it was going to go off anytime. And you can see, you know, the steam in the picture to the left, how hot it was. And in this picture on the right, you can see just how incredibly blue and clear the water was. This is one of my favorite pictures from the trip. This is at the top of the hill past the geysers. So if you walked up this hill, this was on the other side. You can see a little cluster of trees down there. You can see a little tiny stream. Just really, really incredible landscape with beautiful colors. You can see the sky. Even though it was cloudy, you could still see how clear the sky was, the beautiful green. It's a really just open natural beauty in this country. And these flowers, we saw them all over the place, on the side of the road, in open areas. They're called lupine, and they're really abundant in the summer in Iceland. And they're actually not native to Iceland. They were introduced from North America in 1945 to help with topsoil erosion that was happening in Iceland. And unfortunately, since its arrival, it's prospered and spread and almost become kind of an invasive species for the country. But there are some upsides to it. An Icelandic doctor actually founded lupine tea, which helps to diagnose some diseases and is also used as a treatment to coincide with cancer treatment. So we saw a lot of purple, but there are also blue, pink, red, yellow, white, all kinds of different colors of lupines. This was our third stop on the Golden Circle, the Gullfoss. This is a really, really famous waterfall in Iceland. You can see it's kind of two waterfalls in one. Really big, really powerful, really loud. If you've ever been to Niagara Falls, you know, the closer you get, it's just like this thunderous, loud, crashing water. So this was up close on the waterfall. We obviously got very wet being this close. A lot of people had on those kind of plastic ponchos and things like that. And when it's so cold, like it is in Iceland, even in the summer, it was really cold. Being wet on top of it is not very comfortable, but we were well prepared. We brought lots of layers and different things to change into. This is the fourth stop. This is the second, or the second waterfall we saw. It's called Seljalandsfoss, and this one you could actually walk behind it, back behind the waterfall. You can see maybe this tiny little red speck to the far right of the picture. That's a person, so that's all the way behind the waterfall. Again, we got very wet. But it was a really cool experience to get to walk behind a waterfall, something I'd never done before. And this is just a picture of what it looked like all around the waterfall. So if you were looking out from the waterfall from all sides, you'd see just this really beautiful green, and the rocks, the cliffs. It was, even looking at this picture now, I can tell it doesn't capture how beautiful it really was and serene in the moment when I was there. This is the third waterfall that you saw a picture of at the beginning, Skogafoss. These are the stairs you had to take up to the top of the waterfall. It was a long, a long trek up the stairs to that very top up there. Um, this is another picture once we got to the top of the waterfall after a few minutes of hiking our way up. It was really, really high up, really beautiful. You can see some little birds over to the far left flying around. And this was a picture, if you looked behind you, if you were at the top of the waterfall and you looked behind you, there was kind of this little tiny, tiny waterfall stream coming down towards the waterfall. And you see a lot of the green land. And then this was just looking from the top to see more of the houses and the green and the mountains all around the top of the waterfall. This was down at the bottom of the waterfall. Again, just really, really brilliant colors, the black against the green. You can see the blue sky, the clear water. And this was just looking head on at the waterfall. You can see some birds flying around, really, really beautiful, beautiful geography. So Reykjavik, this is Iceland's capital. This is where we spent a lot of our time, where we stayed. And when we weren't off trekking through the country, this is where we were. You could kind of walk through most of the downtown area. It was really friendly, kind of small, homey feel to it, actually, not like maybe New York City or something like that, where the big cities are really, really big and intense. So this is looking down towards the church that I'll get into next. This is the Hallgrímskirkja. Yeah, I did not master the language while I was there. This is one of Reykjavik's main landmarks. You can see it from almost anywhere in the city when we were driving around, even when we were miles away from the center of downtown, you could still see this top of the church. It was designed in 1937 with inspiration from basalt rock, so lava that's cooled, and the kind of shapes that it creates. Inside, we didn't go inside. You had to pay a fee to go inside, so we just decided to capture the outside. But inside, there is a pipe organ that weighs 25 tons. It actually had to be built inside the church because it was too big for them to find a way to bring it inside after it was created. And you can see the statue here up a little closer. This is Leifur Eriksson. Records suggest that he was actually the first European to discover America about 500 years before Christopher Columbus. This statue was a gift from the United States in 1930 in honor of their millennial anniversary of their parliament. As I mentioned, they are a very old democracy. This picture is really, really cool because it almost feels like you can see the clouds kind of moving. There's a lot of texture and beautiful colors, even though it's a little stark to look at. And this is also in Reykjavik, the Harpa Reykjavik Concert Hall and Conference Center. Very, very unique architecture. Here's inside. So you kind of saw what it looked like on the outside. This is a reflection of the inside. It looks really similar. Lots of glass and really unique architecture. So Iceland had its revolution in 2008. It was a very peaceful revolution. The banks collapsed and unemployment skyrocketed. Citizens were worried about famine. So people took to the streets in the capital, in that downtown area, and protested, banging pots and pans and stopping traffic around the capital. And actually, the prime minister and the government resigned that day, and the people themselves wrote a new constitution. It's also Iceland is also considered the most feminist country in the world. Fun fact. Another interesting fact about Iceland is that the fishing industry accounts for majority of their exports and about 40% of their economy. Fish is really, really big in Iceland. This is looking at a port that was right behind the concert hall. And you can see some mountains, some snow caps in the back too. A little bit about Icelandic people. They are descended from Norwegian Vikings, and as well as Scottish and Irish people who were actually brought over by Vikings as slaves. The nation's official language is Icelandic, which is descended from Old Norse, so those old-timey mythologies. And actually, the language has changed so little over time that students in school can actually still read books written in Icelandic from hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Danish and English is also taught in school and widely spoken. So it's very interesting when you go, we went to various places throughout the country, and wherever we went, everyone spoke English and spoke very well. So we didn't have any problem communicating whatsoever. Something funny, nearly 80% of Icelanders believe in elves. There was actually a big hubbub about a construction site that had to be moved, and there are also roads that have to be, they start building a road and they actually have to re-navigate it because they don't want to disturb places where they believe that elves live. Don't ask me. I don't know anything about it. Can't explain it. Something else that was really interesting in Iceland was hitchhiking was very, very common. So when we'd be driving along, especially around tourist spots, there would be people with their thumbs out, their backpacks, looking to catch a ride to the next place. Their crime is very, very low in Iceland, so people had no issue, no worries about safety. So the midnight sun, this is kind of a phenomenon, natural phenomenon that occurs in the summer months north of the Atlantic Circle and south of the Antarctic Circle. The sun remains visible at midnight. So this literally is a picture from midnight, 1 a.m.-ish in downtown Reykjavik. So around the summer solstice, which is about the end of June in the Northern Hemisphere, the sun doesn't set below the horizon for 24 hours. This was another picture from the sun, the midnight sun. This was probably about 2 in the morning. You wouldn't guess it if I asked you what time you thought it was in this picture, that's for sure. Some other places that experience the midnight sun are other Scandinavian countries, obviously, as well as some Canadian territories, Alaska, and Russia. So this was a stop we made at the end of our Golden Circle trip to the Black Sand Beach. Its official name is Reynisfara. It's a world famous beach because of its black sand from, you guessed it, the lava. This is the most southern coast of Iceland. It's part of a really small fishing village called Vik, which, as you guessed, is short for Viking. It has its background in Vikings. It dates back to the 9th century. It was discovered by Vikings and used as a fishing port. This is a really well-known landmark of the beach, just these kind of unique shaped rocks off the close to the shore. It's another picture of the beach. Really, again, really beautiful skies, really clear blue. um, the water, the green on the rocks, just really brilliant colors. So, some interesting facts about Iceland's government. In 1413, they used dried fish as currency. As I said, fish is very big in Iceland. That's always been and clearly always will be. Also, there's no standing army. They have coast guards that maintain the air and coastal waters. And they also have a really large volunteer base for search and rescue and things like that. Also, the police don't carry guns. So it's a very different, very quiet, peaceful country. Again, it's really, really small. So statistically, it kind of makes sense. This was literally called an Icelandic signature dish at a restaurant. It's clearly made for tourists to get a taste of what Icelandic food is really like. Our friend who lived there said that most people she knows don't actually eat stuff like this, but it's become kind of a commercial way to explain what Icelandic food is like. So they're really big foods that they eat are fish, obviously. Skyr, which is like a yogurt kind of dairy product, which you may have seen. It's really big. It's in lots of stores around the world. Smoked lamb. Lamb is also very big there. Lamb and fish are kind of their main proteins. Sheep's head soup we saw on numerous menus. Cured shark, fish jerky, just kind of some fry or dried takes on on seafood. So in this dish, you can see they over here this little pink shape in the bottom right corner. This is lamb on rye bread. Down here in the bottom left, this is fish salad. So much like we would make like a tuna salad or a chicken salad, that's a fish salad, which might be the most normal thing on the plate. And then at the top, in the top center, we have smoked fish. I take it back. That's probably the most normal thing on the plate. And then in this cup, there is a little pad of butter that you spread on this white stuff, which is the fish jerky. And then in this cup with the toothpicks, that is fermented shark. I did not eat any of this. My friend did, who was traveling with me, and she could not swallow it. It was clearly an acquired taste, a lot of this food. So Brennivin is an original Icelandic alcoholic beverage. It's basically distilled wine. So it's their own drink. So you saw Brennivin a lot, wherever you went, at bars, on menus, things like that. Coca-Cola was also really, really popular there. It's actually consumed at one of the highest rates per capita in the world in Iceland. Also some delicacies, whale. Actually, Iceland is one of the few places where you can eat whale. And puffin is also a delicacy there. Beer was banned in Iceland up until 1989, so not that long ago. And as you can see, it has become very popular since then. Wherever we went, there was lots of beer flights like this, and basically everywhere people were drinking it. These are Icelandic horses. I don't know how, but Icelandic horses are known for having 2 extra gaits than your average horse breed. So I guess instead of just trotting and cantering, they can also run in a couple other ways. We didn't see them do anything like that, but that's what I've been told. So about some more about Icelandic animals. Whale watching brings in actually more profit than whaling or whale hunting. So it's kind of a sign that, people could really make a lot more money actually just seeing and enjoying whales. We didn't get to do that, unfortunately, while we were there. We did see some puffins, but from very far away. The pictures, they looked like specks, but we remember the experience. The only native animal to Iceland is Arctic foxes. Fun fact about reptiles in Iceland, for whatever reason, it is illegal to own a pet reptile. There are actually no reptiles in the country. And mosquitoes. Mosquitoes, even though that's a picture of a bee, thanks to PowerPoint, mosquitoes do not exist in Iceland. So you don't need any mosquito repellent when you're there. This is just a really beautiful picture I love of horses at a farm in Iceland. Names. So because Iceland's population is so small, a lot of people are related, are, second cousins or third cousins. So actually in the dating world, there is an app in Iceland, a dating app, to help you verify that the people you're talking to or the people you might want to date are not related to you. Another interesting thing, which you might have noticed in some of the names I mentioned, there are no surnames in Iceland. Icelanders use the traditional Nordic naming system, which means you take the first name of the father or mother and then add daughter if you're a girl or son if you're a boy. So for example, Wilhelm's daughter or Wilhelm's son. And because of this interesting naming system, phone directories list Icelanders by first name alphabetically. Iceland's population is 340,000 people. So Iceland is actually about the size of the state of Kentucky, which has almost 4.5 million residents. Iceland has a lot less than that. Here's another picture. This is a little ram up close and some sheep in the background. So nearly 98% of the population in Iceland has internet connection, which is definitely not true for most countries. Again, it's a really small country, so that's probably more easily attainable, but very, very fascinating. When we were in really remote areas, we still had no problem getting service for directions and things like that. Also, Iceland has a really high regard for literacy. 10% of the population will publish a book in their lifetime, which is really interesting. And the fjords. So our last few days of the trip, or the second half of the trip, we went to the Westfjords. So a fjord is a long, narrow inlet with steep cliffs created by a glacier. Fjords are commonly found in Washington, Alaska, Canada, Antarctica, Northern Europe, the British Isles, and actually, interestingly enough, several countries in South America. Here's a picture of kind of the winding roads through the fjords. And you can see this is the water path made by the glacier and the rocks around it. The Westfjords is a large peninsula in Iceland that lies on the Denmark Strait. It's connected by a 4-mile wide isthmus. The Westfjords are mountainous and heavily indented by fjords and steep hills. So when we were driving through the fjords, it was pretty nail-biting. Really high up, really sharp turns, really narrow roads. It was not my favorite part of the trip. Actually, the geography, as I just mentioned, is really tricky, especially when the weather is colder and there's snow and things like that. So snow and ice, a lot of the months out of the year, these roads are closed because you just can't get through them because of the weather. Luckily, it was summer. It was the warmer months. Again, not that warm, but warm enough there wasn't a lot of snow. This is just a great picture to show, again, no filter on any of these pictures, just the really brilliant blue of the water, this glacial water, and you can see the snow caps in the back and the brilliantly blue sky. This is a picture of a deserted house we came across in the fjords. It was just a very interesting looking house, like kind of little, almost castle-like, just all the way out in the middle of nowhere. Obviously, there's some graffiti on the shed part of it, but it was a really interesting um, little sight to see along the road in the Westfjords. Again, just looking out at the beautiful sky, really appreciating the geography. It was such a serene, peaceful experience going to Iceland, but especially in the Westfjords where it was a lot less populated. It was really quiet, just being a part of nature and enjoying this once in a lifetime experience. I want to end with this really magnificent waterfall we saw in the Westfjords. Dinyandi is what I'm going to say, but don't quote me on that. Really, really tall, as you can see too. So this was kind of up close at the top of the waterfall. And this was looking out from the waterfall towards the fjords. Again, you can see some little tiny white birds flying around. There were always birds by the waterfalls. This is another side of looking out from the waterfall, just magnificent geography with the mountains and the snow. On the other side, and I thought it was cool in this picture because in the top right corner, you can see the sun kind of peeking out through the mountains. This was one of the smaller waterfalls at the bottom of the waterfall. Again, the really brilliant green all over the place. And this is kind of, I'll move myself here so you can get the full picture. This was the best I could do to capture the full waterfall. It was so big and so magnificent. And that's it for my trip to Iceland. I'm glad I could share it with you and tell you a little about my experience. So I want to leave you with this picture of someone sailing out in the Westfjords on a somewhat cloudy day, but you know, it was really just such a beautiful, beautiful place that I don't blame them for taking the waters and enjoying the view. So thanks for coming with me, and I'll see you for another trip sometime soon. Bye-bye.